The scripture that we are reflecting on today is from Psalm 8. And to start this conversation off, we're looking at Psalm 8, verse 2. And through the praise of children and infants, you have established a stronghold against your enemies to silence the foe and the avenger. And so I'm going to open in prayer for us today. And as we think about the praise of children and infants, and that they have such an incredible voice to add, that we want to hear their voice, but we want it to be of praise, and we don't want to silence their voice as we think of today's conversation. So let's pray. Dear Lord God, I thank you for today. I thank you for this conversation that we can have. I thank you for each person that's joined into today's conversation. And I pray that you'll be with us in our conversation as we think about positive parenting and how we can encourage moms and dads and caregivers to positively parent their children, to positively discipline their children, and the struggles that families face as they try and raise their children well. I pray that you'd help us as churches to have a positive voice into this. And so we thank you for this opportunity to have this conversation, and we pray that you give us wisdom and insight and discernment as we think about how we can care well for the youngest in our churches and in our communities, and those that are vulnerable and don't have a voice. I pray, Lord, that we would be able to give them a voice at this time. In Jesus' name, amen. I'm going to hand over to Bryony to take us further into today's conversation. Over to you, Bryony.
Thanks, Ruth, and welcome everybody. It's so exciting to see you join us from all across South Africa today, especially for a really good topic, which is positive parenting. And we probably all have different ideas of what this is. And with children growing up, we as parents have to learn how to positively parent for each season. So whether it's in the first 1,000 days or as they get into teenagehood. But today we're going to be talking about positive parenting in the first 1,000 days, and when children start to push the boundaries and explore the world. And this is largely because around 18 months, they're able to work out what they want or what they want to do, but don't have the words to communicate it, and therefore seem to be objecting or not working with us or complying. Examples being if you want to put them into a car seat and they don't want to sit in the car seat, or you want them to have a bath and they don't want to have a bath, or if you're trying to put them to sleep. And often we call these tantrums. And we might start saying that our child is being naughty, or that they're not that they're not behaving. And so what we want to say today is that looking and at children within the first 1,000 days, they're learning about their emotions and how to express them, as well as how to handle them. And so parenting during this time can be really hard, especially when children are not happy or not doing what we're asking them to do. But we're going to hear now from some guest speakers around how it's not a time that they're being naughty, but as this time of where they're learning about their emotions and how to handle them. And so the question is, how do we positively parent a child that's exploring and finding their own will and starting to realize that they have wishes and they have wants and desires, and they don't always want to do what mom or dad wants them to do. And so what is healthy discipline or guidance in this age, and setting limits versus punishment or parenting with fear? And what can we as the local church do to encourage mums and dads to parent positively? So it comes at the time where we have the 16 days of activism, and it seems really appropriate. And so we want to look at how positive parenting can be done in the homes to reduce violence, that can bring peace in the homes. And so it encompasses quite a large amount of parenting. There's discipline as well. There's setting limits. It's navigating through emotions. And so we're going to start with a bit of a reflective moment, where I'm going to ask if you could close your eyes for a minute and just go back to when you were young, maybe under the age of about 9 years. And I want to ask you the question of, how were you disciplined as a child? What happened in your home when you or another child misbehaved? what would you like to do that's the same as what your family did in disciplining children? And what would you do differently? I think these are topics that we don't, or things we don't want to look at, but when we look back to our past and our childhood, what was done to discipline us or to punish? And what would you say is something that was good and positive and you want to keep when you discipline your children? And what would you like to change? So thinking through that, and if you want to open your eyes again, I want to recognize that we all grew up in different households. We all had different forms of discipline. And what we need to remember is that our parents parented us in a way that they learned by the way that they were parented. So the way we were disciplined was not necessarily their fault. And however, we do have an opportunity to change how we as parents discipline our children and how we encourage other parents to discipline their children so that we can have happy and healthy and thriving children. And I know that this activity sometimes can bring up a lot of memories. Some may be painful and not good. So I do just encourage you now to seek some support if it has triggered anything. Speak to someone that you trust or pray about it. And you will hear from our guest speakers just now who you could also reach out to. But if you feel brave enough and want to share with us some of your upbringing around discipline, you're more than welcome to raise your hand or put it into the chat box. Or there's the raise your hand option on Zoom. But okay, Lungisa, would you like to tell us your story? You will have
Okay. Okay. Good day, everybody. My name is Pastor Mbelo, but I'm using my son's phone.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. When I grew up, my father used when he's done something, he would whip us with a pipe, a hose pipe. He would cut the hose pipe, and then he would whip us with it. Then in the long run, he decided not to do it. He will ask us to look at the wall for a certain time. Then he knows that if you are looking at the wall, you are not participating in anything in the house. The TV is closer to you. You will hear the TV, but you won't look at it, especially when there is a noise. Maybe there will be an action that is happening on the TV. So that is how we were disciplined in my house.
Thank you, Pastor, for sharing that. And I like the way the discipline changed from being punishment to something that maybe a little bit more disciplining rather than punishing. And we're going to hear from the Parent Center and from FAMSA just now around that and how parents can look at how they discipline. But just to start off by just saying that discipline is a way of teaching our children how to behave, and it's not an easy process. And so that's where positive parenting really does encourage this self-learning and self-control in order to be able to guide your child in positive responses and positive behaviors for them. And harsh parenting is often controlling through fear, such as you mentioned, Pastor, about hitting or shouting and using harsh words. But again, I just want to say that as parents, we are parenting the way we were parented, and they're parenting the way they were parented. And so we see this long generational thing happening where parenting goes down from generation to generations, and we're seeing the continuation of discipline or punishment. But we've come a long way in understanding the impact of harsh parenting on our children's brains, on the cognitive development, on their emotional and relationship development. And that's why we want to tackle this topic, and looking at how we can parent better, and how we can encourage parents to parent in a positive way to build healthy relationships with their children so we see them thriving. And so in today's conversation, we're going to interview Carmen de Vos from the Parent Center and Yonela Sipoko from FAMSA. So again, if you have any questions, please do put into the chat box and we're going to answer them at the end as we're going through this. But firstly, I want to say welcome, Carmen and Yonela. It's really great to have you guys with us. Maybe if you just want to first introduce yourselves, tell us what your role is in your organizations and a bit about what your organization does to support families. Maybe Carmen, you can start.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting the Parent Center to this platform. So yes, so I'm Carmen. I've been practicing social work since 2001. Currently, I'm at the Parent Center. I started at the Parent Center in 2013. So I've got a dual role at the Parent Center. I am what we call the counseling coordinator. So I do counseling. So parents will come and we do individual counseling with parents. So we do counseling with parents and not children. And our tagline, so to say, is empowering parents through positive parenting. So the counseling that we offer is with parents regarding any kind of parenting related challenge. And then I also supervise our social workers and counselors who also offer counseling. And then the second team that I'm involved in is our PACES team. And the PACES team is basically the team that goes out and does the community work. So we're the ones that do these types of talks on these platforms. Yesterday I finished facilitating our positive parenting skills training. So we go out. So I'm a trained facilitator as well, speaking on various parenting topics. And just something personal. I am married. I'll be married 19 years in December. Sure, 19 years in December, and I've got two beautiful children. My daughter's grade 8, 15-year-old, full-on teenager, and then my son is 8 years old. So that's Carmen.
Thank you, Carmen. And yeah, we really appreciate you joining us from Parent Center. And Yonela, do you want to introduce yourself from FAMSA?
Yes, thank you very much, Brennan. Hello, everyone. My name is Yonela and my surname is Sipoko. I'm a social worker at FAMSA, of which, as you all know, that we are relationship people. What I do, we do individual counseling, couple counseling, family counseling, as well as trauma debriefing. So I do visit in stores where there is maybe a robbery, and then I will do a debriefing there. I used to do as well facilitation in one of our offices. We do have an office in Khayelitsha, in FAMSA, and in Observatory. At the moment, I'm in Observatory, which is our head office. So yeah, thank you very much to the Sikunye to invite us to be part of this important topic, which is about positive parenting.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brennan.
Thank you. So maybe we can kick off with Carmen. Would you be able to define positive parenting and maybe give us some reasons why it's so important for parents to practice positive parenting?
Okay. So yes, so from our side, positive parenting is really a complete mind shift in parenting. So the positive parenting training that we offer, it's a 7-session course, and we cover everything from understanding children's behavior. And in that session, we discuss things like stages of development, why it is that children misbehave. So there's various factors as to why children might be misbehaving. We have a session where we discuss the importance of discussing feelings, because we know that, we were raised in a generation where children were just told to, do as you're told, you don't ask questions, whereas we're really encouraging parents to speak about feelings. We have a session on self-esteem, of how parents sort of the negative things parents do that could possibly break self-esteem and how to build the self-esteem. And then we have sessions on effective discipline, problem solving, values, and family meetings. But I think the reason why we really do the positive parenting, it's really for parents to learn and understand how to manage their children's behavior. But before you can even manage the child's behavior, it's important to understand your child as an individual. So you could be a parent of 3 children, but you know that your 3 children are 3 different, unique individuals. So with the positive parenting, it's definitely about learning to understand and manage your children's behavior. It's definitely unlearning the unhelpful ways, the way we used to do things in the past. And then it is about learning new skills and new ways of trying to approach challenges. We focus a lot on the soft skills. A lot of it is about really focusing on relationship building, trying to see your children with softer eyes. And if I can make an example, because you're specifically relating to the first 1,000 days. So, so many a times, parents will phone and say, they're concerned about their toddler's not listening, toddler's naughty, toddler's not sitting still. And that is where we can then explain to the parents basically what a toddler's job description is. They're in a phase of curiosity. It's their job to be scratching. It's their job to be touching and feeling and asking questions. Another thing parents would say is, toddler don't listen. He's always saying no, no, no. And then we're like, but now where did the toddler hear the word no? We teach them to feed themselves. We teach them to brush their teeth. We teach them the no, no, no. And then parents get quite frustrated when, the toddler is saying no. So that is really what the positive parenting is. It's really about getting parents to understand their children, and ultimately in understanding your child, it is then about strengthening the parent-child relationship.
Great. Thank you so much, Carmen. And I love that, it's in understanding our children, it's reminding our children that we're seeing the good in them. So always seeing the good helps to parent well, but it's using that positive words, positive thoughts, positive actions. So in positive parenting, it's in using our tone of voice, our words, the way we think of our children, it's the positive way. And helping parents to practice gentleness and kindness and patience and understanding both themselves and then their child. Yeah. So, and what have you seen been something that parents struggle with the most when it comes to parenting? Or what are some of the things that you deal with in your classes or trainings and counseling?
Okay, so I think the biggest challenge that parents are really facing is discipline. So again, I mean, you hear parents saying, the children of today are so different, and they're not so much different. I think the difference is where parents are really not understanding what is the difference between discipline and punishment. Many see it as being synonyms. And discipline and punishment are not synonyms. They are completely opposite. The parents need to realize what is the goal of discipline. And the goal of discipline is ultimately to teach your children to be self-disciplined. It's also about teaching your children to have the confidence to make the right decisions. So with punishment, it's like just wanting to stop the behavior now, which shouldn't be the focus. Discipline is a lifelong process. We've got a saying where we say discipline is not something you take out of the cupboard. It is a lifelong process. So it's about teaching parents how to discipline, to understand, again, discipline is about being self-disciplined. An example would be we wanting to teach our children socially acceptable behavior. So stealing is not socially acceptable. So you want your child to know that stealing is wrong, not just you can't steal when mommy's in the house or mommy can see you. They need to know, and it need to be a internal decision. So obviously, as the child grows older, for them to know what the difference is between right and wrong, and for them to be making informed decisions. We know that punishment breaks down the relationship between parents. So there's also, we educate parents as to why they shouldn't be punishing their children. And I think the first thing about hitting is when we hit our children, we're teaching our children that hitting is okay. And that is why we're sitting with 16 days of activism, because from a young age, children think it's okay to hit. When they go to daycare, they're fighting, because what is happening at home when your child does something you don't like. And I mean, people think even just a tap on the hand, people will think that's not hitting, but what message are you sending your child? So when we discipline, and we say to our parents, when you're disciplining your children, as a parent, you really need to think, if I do or say something, what am I ultimately teaching my child? So even when I say to my child, why did you touch that? Why did you take that? I'm teaching her that hitting is okay. So tomorrow she's going to go to creche and her friend takes her crayons and she's going to hit, because we're teaching that at home from a young age, that hitting is okay. And that is why we strongly advocate against any type of corporal punishment. The Parent Center and I had the privilege of being part of the submissions to make the changes in children's court, and sitting at Constitution Court, really fighting for our children's rights, wanting to know, for parents to know, the long-term effects of punishment. But the change has got to start within the home. And the earlier the better, from a very young age. Again, with the children up to 2 years old, even with them, they're not naughty. It's about the parent needing to understand, and the parent needing to put things in place to protect the child. But again, ultimately, the goal of discipline is to be teaching our children self-discipline. But truth be told, if you want to teach your children self-discipline, you need to practice self-discipline.
Yeah, thank you so much, Carmen. Yeah, as you say, it starts at home, right? And children learn all the best things at home, and sometimes all the worst things at home. But we have to recognize that they are learning from home. And I think one of the things you said to me when we spoke earlier today was that when you use punishment, it's immediate, it's an instant reaction to something that's happened, where you're punishing the child for what they've done. But what ends up happening is the child goes off and is more focused on the punishment and either the pain or the anger or whatever's related to it. And as you said to me, they're thinking, yeah, I'm going to show you next time, rather than actually thinking about what's happened and what they may have done that's caused mom or dad to react. And so actually looking at the form of discipline Yonela, I'm going to ask you to also speak, and just now is around, you mentioned earlier as well, around how you could actually talk to your child and get them to understand why it's bad or not bad, why what they did was wrong, and how there's consequences to that. And I think as you mentioned, both of you've mentioned in previous conversations around how parents model what their children do. So we have to look at ourselves and model what we're wanting our children to behave. So thank you, Carmen. I'm just going to hand over to Yonela. I don't know if you want to pick up on anything that Carmen has said and add to it, but also you do counsel parents at FAMSA and families, and just wondering, what are some of the parenting challenges that you see happening, and what are some of the tips that you give them or positive parenting skills that you give them?
Thank you very much, Brian. When it comes to parenting, it's a two-way street, in a sense that, they say charity begins at home. Parenting starts from within, from the parent. So if you as a parent, you are not in a good space, definitely sure your way of disciplining your children won't be effective, and it won't be helpful to the child. Instead, it will suppress the child not to be able to express how they feel and to engage with the parent. So for me, in counseling, I always encourage to parents that when you are to discipline your child, it's important to observe yourself, you are at what state of mind. Because when a child is doing something there and you are not in a good space, you will react in a punishable way to that child. And you will think that, no, you are disciplining that child, which is totally not the right way to do. So that is to say, parents, in order for them to be in a position of positive parenting, they must always assess themselves. I always tell them about a technique of a robot, whereby as a parent, you will assess yourself in terms of which state of mind am I in. Robot has 3 colors according to the road. It's red, orange, and green. So if you find yourself that there is something that your child has done, you will have to assess yourself, which color am I in? I'm frustrated, or am I angry because this child now is behaving in a way that is unacceptable? So which color am I in? If it's red, stop. Because if you drive on the road when the robots are red, you will cause accident. So there's going to be a clash now between you and the child. And then you're trying now to reach to orange, which is amber. Then you're trying to think now there in terms of what is it that is upsetting me that is done by this child? Which means now you're going to the problem solving kind of a skill to check what is it that the child is making now that upset me. And then you're trying to reach to green. When you are in green, it means you are calm now, you are collected, you will reason to your child and you will talk sense, because often parents tend to shout at their children, hey, you doing this and that. The moment you shout to your child, the child shuts down and now becomes scared. Then it means now whatever that you wanted to correct to the child won't be able to grasp or hear what you are to say. There's a high possibility that that behavior is going to be repeated by that child. But if now you are doing that in a right state of mind, you are calm, you will be able to call your child and sit down with your child. What were you doing there? I was doing this and that and that. You know what? What you were doing there was wrong. What can you do better in order for you to not do that again? Because that is not right. Now you're talking sense to your child, meaning that the child now is able to engage and process what is it that the child has done wrong. So positive parenting, as parents, there is no criteria or some kind of a book of how to raise a child. The key there is to have an understanding of that relationship between parents and the children. And when you are having understanding of each other, you are good to go. So that is what I can say when around positive parenting and what we equipped parents to do.
Yeah, thank you. And I love that robot example that you gave. It's a really simple tool for a parent to try use when dealing with when your child's misbehaving. And I wanted to ask you, we spoke earlier and you mentioned the consequences of parenting the way your parents parented you, and breaking free from that, and how things that we thought were okay, we're now seeing actually are seen as punishment, or are punishment rather than good disciplining skills. Do you want to speak a bit more about that, and what you're seeing happening in the communities that you're working in, with the different courses that FAMSA offers as well, and the counseling? Maybe you have some stories of parents being able to break through into a positive parenting way.
Okay, we as Kamal mentioned that hence we as parents, the way we parent our children or we raise our children is often referenced from how we were raised by our parents. And as a result of that, you will find that if the parent grew up under an environment that was more focused on the punishing of the child, so that parent will see that as something that is how I must raise my children as well. So now that becomes a kind of a generational thing. So I often assess in terms of where are you coming from. If a child, because a parent will bring their children and saying that this one is naughty, with the hope that we will try to correct that behavior of the child, but only to realize that it has something to do with how the parent was raised. And now that parent now is projecting all the anger elements that the parent had from her upbringing or his upbringing. And now is projecting that to the child. And the child will retaliate now from that kind of discipline or being reprimanded by the parent. So we'll often assess in terms of where are we coming from as the parent and how are we now parenting our children. Then that is when now we'll bring the positive parenting in terms of understanding that it's a two-way type of a street. And the most important word there, like Common was saying, is the understanding between the two of them. Because if the child understands the parent understands the child, then the relationship will be strengthened and they will have a positive relationship between the two of them.
Mm.
So those are the situations whereby parents will find that their parenting tends to go wrong because of their past. So I will first assess that situation and then be able now to equip the parent in terms of how to move forward. And when we're doing positive parenting, even though we're not doing here in OPS, but in Khayelitsha, they are still doing that program of positive parenting. We were always in a position of saying that what we are saying as a positive parenting program, we're not saying it's wrong what you are doing or how you are raising your children, but we're saying, look at how you have been doing from how you have raising your children, and look at how now we are saying this is something that can be tried as well. You will see, look now in terms of, has it worked for you the way you were raising your children? If it was not working, then it means you can get some information from this program to add on things, and most importantly, practice make perfect. It's not gonna be something that will happen overnight for your parents now, for your children now to adapt.
Mm.
And as a parent, keep in mind that you are the model. So you preach, you walk the talk. You don't say this, and then the next thing you're doing the opposite of that. The children, you are putting them at confusion now.
Yeah.
Because they will be like, our parent is saying that let's have a manner of addressing situations and let's listen. But my parent, whenever I'm talking to my mother or my father, is busy with something else and is talking to me, looking at that way, maybe busy in the kitchen. Yes, I hear you. You know, you can do that. It's fine. And when the child is doing the same thing now to the parent, it's totally a no-no zone. It's a problem.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that we encourage parents that you must walk the talk.
Yeah. So be the model, as you say, to the parents. The parent must be the model to the child of what they're wanting. So in many ways, it's also that parents understanding and being gentle with themselves, that they may not get it right all the time. And that's what I also want to say today, is that this isn't to shame parents saying you're parenting badly because you react in certain ways. We all have to learn healthier ways of parenting and ways that don't have negative consequences on our children, but at the same time then being gentle on your child. And as you mentioned, it's the understanding of each other. I think also often we forget that actually respect also goes two ways. So we want our children to respect us as elders and their parents, but also we must respect them too. And recognizing that they have big emotions, big feelings that can be very overwhelming. That young first 1,000 days, before 2, the emotions can be very overwhelming, but we also know as teenagers, with emotions can become even more overwhelming then. And it's being able to as a parent, we need to learn coping skills to be able to be calm, and then be able to parent well. And I think that's something we try at Sikunye. We often are talking about how do we cope with our emotions, recognizing that our feelings and emotions are natural, and so are our children's. And it's not, there's no good or bad feelings. It's just learning how to cope with those feelings in a way that doesn't have a negative consequence. And so, yeah, thank you for that, Yonela. But I'd love to know, because today we have many churches represented in the room, and I'd love to know from the Parent Center and from FAMSA what you offer in terms of supporting families, but also how does the referral work from a church, but also just to know what's out there. So there's many resources out there. We spoke earlier about what information is out there. I don't know, Carmen, if you want to pick that up around what information is out there, what resources can parents look at, and then how can churches work with Parent Center or with the programs that you offer, and also the same with FAMSA. What do you offer and how can churches work with you, recognizing that we're from across South Africa represented here today. So I don't know if Carmen, do you want to start, and then Yonela can take.
Yes, I mean, so at the Parent Center, I mean, we do have a library. So when parents are coming for counsel or for training, we often do encourage parents to take from the books. But I know a lot of parents are reading more online, and reading online is fine. But I think that the risk with reading online is the thing of having to acknowledge that you still need to understand your child as an individual. So yes, you're going to read this information and, okay, this seems like a good method to use, but this might be an okay method for your one child, but not the other child. So I think that is why the counseling is important. Children have different temperaments, they have different needs. So the counseling and the positive parenting is important, because, you know, whatever technique you're going to use, it has to be in line with how your child is. So in terms of counseling, prior to COVID, we only did face-to-face counseling. We have now expanded. We are doing telephonic counseling, WhatsApp video call, counseling sessions via Zoom. There are costs involved. It is per salary scale, but then there are some clients who are really not by means to pay, and we do try to still assist those clients. So in terms of how the churches can help, I think really encouraging people to ask for help. I think that there's still quite a stigma attached to counseling. That, you know, if people hear you going to counseling, they assume like something must be wrong with me, or oh, what's wrong with that child. Counseling isn't just there because something is wrong. It takes courage to go for counseling. Going for counseling is saying, I have a problem, I am struggling, I'm willing to change, I'm wanting to learn. So I think maybe that is definitely one thing that I think the churches could assist in, is by encouraging people to ask for help when they are in need, and not to seek going for counseling as a weakness. So in terms of the Parent Center, you can just call to the office. Our receptionist, Bronwyn, is lovely. She'll make an appointment with you. You know, she'll ask you about whether you prefer face-to-face or online. So we do try to meet the client's needs like that. Some clients who are working, we have to see 8 o'clock, or we have to see them 1 o'clock during their lunch times. So we do try to meet the client's need. And then I think just two messages that I think also for the churches to give to the parents is, often parents complain about their children's behavior, but if parents are wanting to break a cycle, the change needs to start with the parent. I need to change the way I behave towards my child in order for my child to change. It's like Yonela said, it's definitely a two-way street. But if we're wanting to break the constant arguing and quarreling and that in the house, unfortunately, it's my job as the parent. I'm going to have to make that change. I'm going to have to start listening. I'm going to have to start speaking about feelings. And in that way, we're strengthening relationships. And I think also another message for parents to know that there are no perfect parents. You can come for counseling 5 days a week. you're not going to be a perfect parent. I'm not a perfect parent by no means. And I think we need to encourage our parents to be, like we're saying, good enough parents. And a good enough parent is a parent who is willing to listen. A good enough parent is one who is willing to admit when they've made mistakes. The robot is an excellent skill. And I often joke saying, yeah, my robot don't kick in, in the mornings between 4:30 and 6:30 when I need to leave home. That that robot is not fully functional between 4:30 and 6:30 because things need to happen. But then as a parent, I need to acknowledge if I've made a mistake. I need to acknowledge I've made a mistake. I need to apologize and I need to try again. And that is what good enough parents are. So again, encouraging parents, there are no perfect parents. We all make mistakes. We are all still going to make mistakes. Even if you complete the positive parenting skills training, you are still going to make mistakes, and that it's okay because mistakes is part of learning. And again, if you're a good enough parent and you're able to acknowledge your challenges, mistakes, you're willing to make amends, again, you are role modeling. You're practicing self-control, you are role modeling. Yes, there are days that you're not in control and you might say something that you're going to regret later, but it's important to then go back and acknowledge, you know what, I'm sorry, this morning mommy was really not in a good mood. I was really worried about the presentation I had to do on Zoom between 1 and 2, so I wasn't in a good space. And so I'm sorry that, I spoke to you in an unruly manner or that kind of thing. So definitely 3, encourage parents to go for counseling. Parents need to break the cycle, and for parents to know that there are no perfect parents. All you need to do is be a good enough parent.
Thank you, Carmen, so much for that. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, and maybe just speak through what some services FAMSA offers. You're on mute.
Okay, well, what I can encourage is that parents, if they can parent with open-minded, then they are good to go, because when you parent with open-minded, it means that you are flexible. You are able to put yourself at the level of your child so that you can have an understanding of where the child is coming from. So as FAMSA, we offer counseling services as a relationship people, individual, couple, families, and corporates as well. We do also have community-based services, whereby we have our lay counselors in some hospitals and clinics who are doing the kind of a campaign and encouraging people as well to take care of themselves and to take their medication, those who are in medication. And we also do offer some courses which are offered by one of our department, which is Farm Track. And we do the basic counseling skills, bringing about healing in traumatic situations, HIV and AIDS training, prepare, enrich and training, sexual counseling in couple relationships. There's a lot, actually, it's a list. And you can find that information in our website, which I think they can see behind me, the www.famsa.org.za. So I would encourage the church institution to do that basic counseling, because it will also help them to be in a position of referring people based on what is brought to them. So that is what I can encourage the churches, and to also do some workshops such as the positive parenting, the one that is offered by Parent Center and by Khayelitsha office here at FAMSA. Those are programs that I think can help in informing and equipping the parents with regards to positive parenting. And positive parenting, I think it does not only focus only on the relationship of a parent and a child. It's something that one can apply in any form of a relationship, because the main thing about it, it's about the relationship between the two people. So I would encourage everyone to also go for that program, not only to with the intention of being a positive parent to their children.
Thank you, Yanela. And I appreciate both of you and what you've said today is because what I'm just thinking as you're talking, now that we are going through the 16 days of activism, also because we look at schools. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So as we're going through 16 days of activism, but if you also look at schools and some of the environments that our children are being raised in, and also going to schools where there may be quite a lot of disruption due to the neighborhood, what we do see through science is that children who live in a consistent state of fear or chronic anxiety. So whether that is violence in the home, whether it's being shouted at, whether it's in their school environment, whether it's their friends, and bullying, all of that, we're looking at a range of things. But within the first 1,000 days, if there is this consistent state of fear, being in a threatening place, what we see is that it does disrupt the development of the brain architecture. So for those who know Sikunye, we talk a lot about how the brain connections form and how that, if done in the first 1,000 days, allows the child to grow up thriving because they have better cognitive development for school, they can learn well, and we've seen a lot happening around children who can't learn in school because of the environment that they're in. And it's known that when children are in a state of fear, they can't absorb information. So it's the same as if you are punishing your child in that state of fear, if they're scared of being punished, they're not absorbing what they've done wrong and what's upset you, rather they're just trying to remain safe emotionally and mentally and physically. But we are running out of time, and so I just want to quickly ask if there's anyone that has any questions. The websites that both Carmen and Yanela have mentioned, we will be putting in the reflection that you'll be getting on Friday, along with a whole lot of other resources that we have used in how to parent positively. And again, just to say, please do have a look at our website around now with the 16 days of activism, but also with our resources for positive parenting. I don't know, Ruth, do you have anything you want to add? What some of your personal reflections are, and if anybody else wants to say something, just maybe raise your hand.
No, I appreciate this conversation, and I realize it's a much bigger conversation than an hour can hold, and I'm sure there's lots of questions, and I know we're going to pick this conversation up again as Sikunye next year. But just realizing, like, we're wanting our children to grow up in spaces where they feel safe, where they feel safe with their caregiver, with their parents, that they feel loved and cared for, and that in the way that we discipline our children, we do protect that relationship, that we understand our children, we understand where they're coming from, why they're behaving the way they might be in the first 1,000 days. They might just be really tired and it's close to nap time and they're acting out. And so for me to come down harshly and in a way that creates fear is actually unhelpful for them in that moment. And so as parents, learning, as you're saying, learning our children, learning to understand our children and why they're behaving the way they are is so important. And encouraging moms and dads to slow down from the red and get into the green and try and understand what's going on here. Why is my child like this? What can I change in my household routine? What can help my child to respond better in the moments where I'm struggling? And so as a young parent, when I had my little ones, some of the sage advice I was given that I've held on to even now is choose your battles. I can't pick on everything. I've got to work out what's triggering me. Why am I getting upset about this behavior? And what's important for character development? What are things that are values? Like you said, stealing in my house, I want my children to have manners and be respectful. So these are things that I'm going to keep harping on about in a positive way, but I'm not going to fight about everything. If they throw their toys on the floor and their room's in a bit of a mess and they're having fun playing, I'm not also going to get upset about that. That's not the battle I'm going to fight today. I want my children to grow up with good character, that they know that they're loved and they're safe. And so I think what you guys have said is so important as we try and parent well and try and have peaceful homes where they're free from violence, where we're not harshly punishing our children, that they're living in fear. but they understand their boundaries and they understand that there's consistency, there's routine, and their parents love them. They don't have to be perfect parents. I love that too. We're not perfect parents. We make mistakes. We need to apologize. We need to say sorry. Sometimes we do respond out of the red and we need to apologize. And we need to ask for help and say, help, I'm struggling right now. I'm not coping. Where can I get help? And this is where we as churches can come in and help and say, how can I come with journey with you, mom and dad? Where are you struggling? We have seasons in our children's lives where it's harder, where the tantrums are bigger, where we're not coping, where we might be triggered more from our own personal stuff. And so we need to ask for help. So I appreciate the conversation. Thank you so much. Can I close this off in prayer? And if there are any questions or stuff that you're sitting with, you're welcome to put them in the chat box. Brian and I will definitely look at it and see how we can answer the questions. We might post them towards Carmen and Yanela and see how we need to answer these questions at another point in time as we've run out of time. But as you've journeyed with parents, there might be some good questions that you're grappling with for how you support parents and where they can get help. So thank you, guys. Let me close in prayer. Dear God, I thank you that you first and foremost are a good parent towards us, and that you show us such grace and compassion and love and forgiveness, and that you come towards us with such gentleness. And I pray, Lord, that you would help us to parent in a way that, and to encourage our parents in a way to help our children to grow with good character, in a way that they know that they're loved, that they're cared for, and that they belong, that they're not growing out of fear, but that they are responding in obedience because they are loved, because they are in a safe space, because they know who they are. And I pray that you'd help us to encourage this conversation around positive parenting in our context, to speak into our cultures where we see unhelpful behavior, to speak into our homes and into our families, and to find ways to encourage new ways of parenting that our children can thrive and flourish and grow. And so we pray against the violence that we see in our homes and in our communities, and we pray that we be able to make a difference in these spaces, that we can have safe spaces for our families to thrive and flourish. We thank you for this time. We thank you for this conversation. We pray that you go with each of us. In Jesus' name, amen.